Blake Tennison had processed 73 loan applications in 8 months at First National Bank, and he'd gotten good at reading people before they finished their first sentence. The desperate ones arrived rehearsed, smiling too hard, talking too fast, trying to sound like they weren't drowning. But the man who walked in at 3:47 p.m. on a Tuesday didn't even try to hide it. He wore desperation the way some men wore a wedding ring, like something that had become part of the skin. Faded denim jacket with frayed cuffs, work boots polished by years instead of effort, a face weathered by Texas sun and wind and decisions made too late. And his eyes weren't pleading. They were urgent, calculating, and heavy with the kind of focus you see in someone who knows time is running out and refuses to waste any of it. Blake didn't look up right away. He kept his gaze on the screen, letting the silence do what it usually did, make people fill it with nervous explanations. "Help you?" he asked, casual and flat, already classifying the man as a problem that would eat into the 13 minutes left until his break. "Need to talk about a loan," the man said. No pleasantries, no small talk. Just a rough, direct voice that sounded like it had been scraped clean by years of dust and hard decisions. "A substantial amount. Today." Blake finally glanced up, giving the kind of look he reserved for people who didn't understand how banks worked. "Today's not really how agricultural loans work, sir," he said, the words smooth with practiced dismissal. "We need income verification, property appraisals, and that's before underwriting. 2 weeks minimum. I have collateral." The man placed a weathered manila folder on Blake's desk like he'd placed it there 100 times in his head. "2 bulls, registered, full documentation. I need $40,000 by close of business." Blake laughed before he could stop himself. It wasn't loud, just short and dry, enough to carry across the open plan office, enough to make 2 tellers glance over, enough to make Jessica at the next desk lift her eyebrows like she'd just been handed the first good piece of entertainment all day. "You're serious?" Blake said, letting the grin sit on his face like it belonged there. "Cattle as collateral?" "Bulls," the man corrected, quiet but firm. "Right, bulls." Blake leaned back, voice rising just enough to make sure other people could hear. "Sir, with all due respect, this is a bank. We deal with property, vehicles, securities. We don't repo livestock. What am I supposed to do if you default? Drive a cattle trailer to your ranch?" The man didn't smile, didn't get defensive, didn't apologize. He just opened the folder and slid photographs across the desk. 2 massive animals stood under professional lighting, white tan hides stretched over muscle, the kind of muscle that didn't look like it belonged on anything that walked. Each bull looked like it could move a truck if it felt like it. Blake's grin faltered for half a second. "Those animals," the man said, "are worth more than your car, your mortgage, and probably a year of your salary combined." He said it the way you'd say the weather report, not bragging, not threatening, just stating a fact. "But I'm not here to educate you," he continued. "I'm here because I need $40,000 by 5 p.m., and those bulls are legitimate collateral, registered with the American Chevrolet Association." Blake picked up one of the photos and pretended to examine it, like the act of looking longer could turn the bull into something less ridiculous. "I'm sure they're very impressive to other cattle," he said, setting the photo down with exaggerated care. "But this bank doesn't accept—" "Goliath and Titan," the man interrupted, soft, absolute. "Registered numbers ACA 447821 and ACA 447822. 4 years old, prime breeding age. Lineage traced back 7 generations. The documentation is in that folder." Blake glanced at the folder without opening it. "Look, Mr. Carver, Holden Carver." Blake nodded as if the name meant something. "Mr. Carver," he said, "I appreciate you coming in, but cattle don't pay bills. They need feeding, veterinary care, maintenance. Even if we accepted livestock, which we don't, the risk assessment alone would take weeks. And frankly, the smell isn't exactly what our board considers clean collateral." Jessica let out a quiet chuckle. Blake caught her eye and smirked. This was exactly the kind of story people told at happy hour. But Holden Carver didn't react. not a twitch of embarrassment. He reached into the folder and pulled out a certificate with an official seal. Registration numbers, genetic lineage, microchip codes. Then he looked straight at Blake, steady as a fence post. "You have access to the ACA registry system?" Holden asked. Blake blinked. "What?" "The American Chevrolet Association." Holden's voice didn't rise. "Your bank processes agricultural loans. You have registry access for verification. Standard protocol." "We don't deal with livestock collateral," Blake said again, and he realized he was repeating himself like a man trying to convince his own brain. Holden watched him, calm, like someone waiting for a door to open that he already knew wasn't locked. "Check the registry," Holden said. 5 minutes. If the records don't support what I'm saying, I walk away and never waste your time again." Blake hesitated, because he did have access. It was buried inside the bank's agricultural lending software, one of those features installed for rural branches that the downtown office almost never used. But Holden's certainty did something uncomfortable to Blake's confidence. "Fine," Blake said, dragging the word out like it tasted bad. "But when this comes back showing 2 regular bulls worth $5,000 each at auction, we're done. Deal?" "Deal." Blake pulled up the registry system, typed in his credentials, navigated to verification. He copied the first registration number, ACA 447821, and hit enter. The system loaded slower than usual. Progress bar crawling like it had somewhere better to be. Blake drummed his fingers, already composing the story in his head. The rancher who thought a bank would accept 2 cows as collateral. The screen refreshed, and Blake's smirk collapsed. Red text dominated the page, loud and unavoidable. "Ownership dispute. Restricted transfer. Legal hold. Contact ACA compliance immediately. Do not process without verification." Below the warnings was the breeding profile, bloodline, microchip number, registration date. But there was a notation he'd never seen. "Origin verification required." And beneath that, a line that turned his stomach cold. "Current location. Discrepancy with last reported transfer. See attached compliance notes." Blake stared at it, read it again, then again. Like the words might change if he looked hard enough, he slowly lifted his eyes to Holden Carver. Holden sat perfectly still, watching him with the patience of someone who'd already counted every second of this moment. "What?" Blake's voice came out smaller than he intended. "What am I looking at?" Holden leaned forward slightly. "You're looking at 2 bulls that are registered, documented, and worth what I said they're worth," he said. "But you're also looking at a problem that's been sitting in that database for years." He paused, letting the silence sharpen. "A problem someone worked very hard to make sure nobody would look at." Blake's hand hovered over the mouse. Every professional instinct screamed to close the page. Call a manager, pretend he never saw it. But the red alerts burned on the screen like warning lights. "I need to speak with my manager," Blake said. "No." Holden's reply was immediate. "You need to check the second bull," Holden said. "Right now." Blake bristled. "I don't take orders from—" "I'm not giving orders," Holden said calmly. "I'm giving advice. Because in a minute, the system will log your search. And when it does, people are going to know someone finally looked." He lowered his voice like the walls might be listening. "People who spent years making sure nobody did." Blake swallowed. Then he cleared the search and entered the second number, ACA 447822. The loading screen felt endless. When it refreshed, the alerts were identical. And then he saw something extra, a compliance note dated 6 months ago. Third-party inquiry received regarding current location. Inquiry denied pending ownership resolution. Flag. Multiple verification requests suggest external interest. Recommend audit before any transfer approval. Blake's mouth went dry. He looked up. Holden stood, closing the folder as if this were the most ordinary meeting in the world. "I need $40,000 by close of business," Holden said. "Those bulls are legitimate collateral." He took a step toward the door, then paused. But if you approve this loan, he continued, you're accepting collateral someone doesn't want recognized. And then, without turning around, he added, and if you deny it, you lose your only chance to figure out why. Holden walked out. Blake stared at the empty chair, the manila folder still on his desk, the red warnings glowing like a siren. His phone rang. Caller ID, Weston Mercer, Senior Vice President, Blake's boss's boss. Blake answered with a throat full of sand. Mr. Tennison, Weston said, voice controlled in the way powerful men sounded when something wasn't supposed to be happening. I understand you just ran verification on 2 ACA registrations. Blake's eyes flicked to the screen. We need to talk, Weston continued. My office, right now. And Blake. A pause, thin as a razor. Don't mention this to anyone else yet. The line went dead. Blake sat still for half a second. Then he stood, because suddenly the idea of taking a break in 13 minutes felt like something that belonged to another life. If you're the kind of person who likes stories where one small decision opens a door you can't close, this is your moment to subscribe. Because what happens next isn't about bulls at all. It's about what people try to hide, and what it costs to look. Weston Mercer's office carried 30 years of banking authority. Mahogany desk, framed awards, a window view that made the city look smaller than the man behind the desk. Weston didn't offer a seat. He just turned his laptop around so Blake could see the same red warnings. You ran these at 3:51 and 3:53, Weston said. By 3:54, automated notification. By 3:56, I got a call from someone who shouldn't know we have registry access. Blake's stomach tightened. I was verifying collateral, Blake said. Weston's expression didn't change. You did exactly what Holden Carver wanted, Weston replied. He needed someone inside an institution to run those numbers and trip the alarms. Blake blinked. He wanted this? Weston stood and walked to the window, hands behind his back. 4 years ago, Weston said, Brazos auction moved premium stock through clean channels. Then complaints started showing up, quietly. Buyers claiming the animals delivered didn't match what they purchased. Registration numbers not matching microchips. Stock disappearing between auction and delivery. Blake's mind raced. So there was an investigation? An attempt, Weston said. It went nowhere. People who asked questions got audits. People who pushed got buried in paperwork, and everyone learned a lesson. Stop looking. He turned back to Blake. Except someone kept monitoring those flags, Weston said, waiting for anyone dumb enough, or curious enough, to verify. Blake felt heat rise in his face. And I verified, Blake said. Creating a time-stamped institutional record, Weston replied. Your login. Proof the bank saw bulls that were supposed to be invisible. Blake's phone buzzed with another call, unknown number. Weston nodded once like he'd been expecting it. Put it on speaker, Blake answered. A voice came through, smooth and controlled. This is Dashiell Knox, the voice said. I understand verifications were run on certain registrations. Blake's eyes met Weston's. Weston's face tightened by a millimeter. Those registrations are subject to litigation, Knox continued. Complicated. Kept quiet for a reason. Weston leaned forward. If there's litigation, why isn't the registry formally locked? A pause. Multiple jurisdictions, Knox said. It's complex. Weston didn't blink. Someone made an inquiry 6 months ago. Longer pause. Resolved internally, Knox said. By denying it? Weston replied. Knox's voice hardened. If you process this loan, you're accepting ownership claims you don't understand. Walk away. The line went dead. Blake stared at the phone like it had teeth. That was a board member, Blake said. That was a threat, Weston corrected. Then another call came in. Holden Carver. Weston gestured again. Answer. Blake hit speaker. 40 minutes until close, Holden said. Loan or I take the documentation to the sheriff and ask why First National refused legitimate collateral after verifying it exists. Weston closed his eyes for a beat, one deep breath. Mr. Carver, Weston said. Return with complete documentation, veterinary certificates, facility verification, expenses. We'll process. 20 minutes, Holden said. Call ended. Blake looked at Weston. We're approving? We're creating a paper trail, Weston said. Because when powerful people panic over livestock, it's not about livestock. Holden returned in 18 minutes. He walked into the conference room like someone who'd already stepped across the finish line and was only waiting for the tape to catch up. He laid out documents in a precise stack. Veterinary certificates, dated 3 days ago, vaccinations, testing, health clearances. You had these ready, Blake said. When you carry animals with complicated histories, Holden replied, your documentation stays current. Next, facility photos. The bulls, massive and calm, time-stamped, GPS coordinates, then transport records, feed invoices, microchip scan printouts. And finally, a page that made Blake's pulse jump. Microchip implant dates. The chips matched the registry numbers, but the implant dates didn't match the birth record. A conflict, not a typo, not a small one. Blake read the line twice. Implant date conflicts with registered birth date. Holden watched him read it. 2 weeks before the auction 4 years ago, Holden said. That chip was implanted, not at birth, not in early calfhood, right before a major sale. Blake looked up. Meaning what? Holden's voice stayed calm, but the meaning landed heavy. Meaning someone needed a bull to become a bull on paper right before money changed hands, Holden said. Meaning you can sell premium genetics on paper and deliver something else in a trailer. Blake felt his earlier laugh echo in his skull. You engineered this, Blake said quietly. Holden didn't deny it. I needed institutional verification, Holden replied. Not a blog, not a rumor, not a rancher's complaint that gets shrugged off. He tapped the registry printout. A bank timestamp, Holden said. A record that can't be quietly deleted without someone noticing.
Goliath and Titan.
Blake swallowed. Who are you? Holden paused like he'd decided how much to reveal. Someone who's watched people lose livelihoods because they trusted paperwork, he said. Someone who got tired of watching powerful men bury truth under complex jurisdictions. Blake looked at Weston. Weston's face was set, like a man choosing pain on purpose. Then Weston returned to his office and called Knox back. Blake couldn't hear every word, but he heard enough. Knox offered to guarantee the loan. $40,000, no risk, his signature. In exchange, the searches, scans, and documentation stayed internal, buying silence. Weston listened, then spoke with a calm that felt like steel. No, Weston said. We're processing standard terms. If you have a claim, file it in court. Blake saw Weston's knuckles go white around the phone. When the call ended, Weston looked at Blake. This will cost us clients, Weston said. Blake nodded. I know. You might lose your job, Weston added. Blake's throat tightened. Then somehow Blake heard himself say the thing he hadn't believed he'd ever say in that office. Then we lose it, Blake said. But we don't help someone hide fraud. Weston held his gaze for a long moment, then nodded once. Approve the loan, Weston said. At 4:47 p.m., Holden Carver signed the papers. At 5:03 p.m., he walked out with $40,000. And with something else, far more valuable. Proof that the bulls existed, that the flags existed, that someone had been trying to keep both invisible. By 5:15 p.m., Knox called clients. By 5:30 p.m., Weston drafted a board memo that read like an ethics case study, and Blake sat at his desk staring at the empty chair where Holden had been sitting, understanding for the first time that a man can walk into a bank with 2 bulls and change the gravity of the entire building. Months later, Blake was in the conference room when Agent Sarah Chen showed her credentials. FBI Agricultural Crimes, she said. Blake's stomach flipped. We're following up on documentation related to ACA 447821 and ACA 447822, she said. Your verification triggered a chain we've been trying to pull for years. Blake said nothing because he suddenly understood that the system hadn't been slow when he hit enter. It had been heavy. How many? Blake asked. Agent Chen's eyes were steady. 47 bulls, she said. 3 years. Around $2 million in documented value. Premium animals sold on paper. Mismatched animals delivered. Original stock moved through shadow channels. Blake felt a cold wave move through him. Why not caught? He asked. Control, Chen replied. Knox controlled infrastructure. Complaints got buried. Audits delayed. People got intimidated. She paused. Until someone engineered a verification Knox couldn't suppress. Blake looked down at the table, at his own hands. So Holden, Blake began. Holden Carver is not just a rancher, Chen said. He's a former investigator. He went private. He tracked the animals. He bought them. And he needed someone like you. The words hit Blake like a strange kind of mercy and insult all at once. He needed my verification, Blake said. He needed your timestamp, Chen replied. He needed an institution to look. Agent Chen slid a folder across the table. Dashiell Knox was indicted yesterday, she said. Wire fraud, money laundering, conspiracy. The auction is frozen. Assets seized. Blake stared, almost unable to let himself believe it. And the bulls? Blake asked. Agent Chen's expression softened slightly. Recovered, she said. Returned to a Colorado operation that reported premium stock stolen years ago. Insurance paid out long ago. Now they're getting the animals back, plus offspring. Blake's chest tightened. Agent Chen rose to leave, then turned back. There's one more thing, she said, and she handed Blake an envelope. The handwriting on it was neat and simple. Blake opened it. A short note, a check, full repayment, interest included, and a message that made him exhale for the first time in what felt like months. Thank you for verifying what others refused to see. Your laugh was the spark. Your choice was the fire. H.C. Blake sat there, holding the note like it weighed more than the check. Because the truth was, the laugh had been easy. The choice had not. After Agent Chen left, Blake stood at the window and watched cars move like tiny dots below. Weston walked in quietly. Board met, Weston said.
Why not
We lost some clients. We gained others. Clean books. People who want a bank that doesn't flinch. He studied Blake. Promotions approved. Blake looked at him, surprised. Senior loan officer, Weston said.
I guarantee you,
turns out integrity has market value. Blake swallowed the strange lump in his throat. Later that day, Jessica leaned over the divider.
Weston,
So,
if the merger
she
proceeds,
said,
we are
half
initiating
smiling.
immediate client
FBI,
pullouts
huh?
across the board.
About the bulls?
Financial consequences
Blake
will
looked
be
at her,
catastrophic
then
for
at
your
his
division.
computer screen.
I understand
The place
your
where red
position,
warnings
but
had
my
once
decision
glowed like a
stands.
warning from the future.
We won't be proceeding
about
with that
choosing
arrangement.
correctly, he said. He paused, then
They
added,
process
not as a
standard
joke
terms
this time.
and let courts handle
If someone
claims.
brings livestock collateral, don't laugh, Blake said. Verify. Jessica's smile faded, replaced by curiosity. Because sometimes, Blake continued, complicated
The
doesn't
loan is
mean
approved,
worthless.
but I need
He looked down at
speed.
the note again.
Make sure this is processed before
Sometimes
the
it
end of the day.
means someone is hiding something expensive. Blake's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Different state, different cattle. If you hear the name Stellan Marlowe around
20
livestock
minutes.
loans, verify. Trust me. H.C. Blake stared at it for a long moment. Then he saved the number.
I need the full
Because the strange
documentation
part
for
wasn't
processing,
that two
Holden.
bulls could
Come
be
back when
worth
you have
more
it
than
all.
$40,000.
Understood.
The strange part was what their existence proved.
They're already waiting
that
in the main
paperwork can
conference
lie.
room.
That
We just
power
need to
can
finalize
scare
the
people into
projections before the
silence.
board arrives.
And that one person, in the wrong mood, at the wrong desk, on the wrong afternoon, can still do the right thing. So if you stayed with this story to the end, subscribe. Because New York
Registered,
Stories is where we dig up the
full
truths people tried to
documentation,
bury,
$40,000
and we
by
tell them in a
close.
way you'll never forget.